Go ahead.
Did the style and hypergraphics of our Crumb have an influence on your own style?
Crumb. Has Crumb had an influence on? Well, I think the documentary about Crumb is one of the greatest movies ever made about a creative personality in America ever. If you haven't seen Crumb, maybe they have it in the DVD section here. Great story about an artist. I haven't written a scene about a dwarf getting off by humping a giantess's back. That's not in Locke and Key yet. There's still room. Everything. A long time ago, someone told me, I showed a friend a story that I thought was genius. And this person responded by saying they didn't like it that much because it wasn't about anything except itself. And I kind of scratched my head over that for a long time. I didn't even know what it meant. But over time, I've come to believe that that an idea in a story, a concept, a high concept, is only interesting if it leads you to ask big questions. That a concept is only good as the questions it suggests, and that like a lot of action movies are unsatisfying because they're just like car chases and guys hitting each other. It's not about anything. And I started to get this when I started to write ghost stories, because ghost stories are almost always inherently about big scary questions, like what happens to us after we die. A lot of horror fiction, I've done a lot of work in horror fiction, and a lot of horror fiction asks, what would it be like to be in my last hours and to suffer the worst? This is a question we don't want to face in everyday life. It's too terrible, No one really wants to think, what would it be like to be one of the passengers on United 93? What would it be like to be facing my last desperate hour and to know I'm not going to survive? And, it's... But in the safe playground of fiction, in a novel or a comic book, or a short story, we feel we can relax and we can face the worst possible questions. And that's one of the reasons why I love horror fiction. I am going somewhere with this about Crumb. In Locke and Key, my idea is we have these keys which are all fun, which do fun, different things. One key, you can use and it will separate your spirit from your body and you can walk around as a ghost. Another key allows people to change genders. So if you're a boy, you can walk through this door and turn into a girl. If you're a girl, you can walk through the door and turn into a boy. And so there are all these magically empowered keys, but the keys are all kind of like metaphors for me to explore stuff about how teenagers scrape together their own identity. In this issue that went through 8 fucking drafts, one of the things we have is we have one of the characters using the head key, which is from the second book. It's this key, you can use it to unlock your head, and then you can take stuff out and put stuff in. You have a character using this in a way where it's pretty clearly a metaphor for kids experimenting with drugs or underage sex. It isn't underage sex and it isn't drugs, but that suggestion is there. And this is one of the fun things about fiction, is this way it gives us to sort of poke at at changes in life and your own experience, and it's that safe playground. So what was I? How was I going to tie this into Crumb? I don't know. If I remember, I'll tell you. I don't know. I lost it. Anyone else? I'm on tonight. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been reading your books, and I didn't know you actually wrote comics. I love comics, so this is right up my alley. But this is the 3rd book, then?
Mm-hmm.
And you're writing all of them?
Yes.
Right through.
Yeah, there's, with a few breaks here and there, there's 6 books in all. The first 3 are out. The beginning, they call them arcs. Every arc is 6 issues because that's what fits nicely into one of these books. The new arc is called Keys to the Kingdom, and it begins in 2 weeks. And that's actually a series of standalone stories. Each issue explores a new key, and and if you haven't read the series, you could almost just drop in and have fun with it and then drop back out or go back to the beginning or whatever you wanted. But I wanted to give, at the midway point through the series, I felt like it was my last shot to interest new readers, because the last 2 books, no one really wants to start a series at book 5. So, yeah. Go ahead.
How does the standalone issues affect the rest of the series?
For people who are sort of like devotees of the series, information about many questions have been raised about what's going on. How did the keys come to be? Where is this guy Dodge? How did he get to be so bad? What does he want? What he wants is he wants this thing called the Omega Key, which will open the black door. But we don't really know what that key does, and we don't really know what's on the other side of the black door. For people who have been following the series from the beginning, information is sprinkled throughout those standalone stories that begins to move us towards answering some of those questions. But if you haven't read any of the other stories, you can read it and probably not even know you had just been fed some clues. So, I've mentioned Neil Gaiman a couple times. I love Neil Gaiman's fiction. I love his comic books. He wrote a series called Sandman, which is, in the comic books field, sort of what Lord of the Rings is to fantasy fiction. It's just this huge epic that changed everything that came after it. And one of the books in the Sandman cycle is called Dream Country. And it's 4 stories, and each story is just this kind of unique, standalone thing about dreams. And there's one story which is about William Shakespeare performing A Midsummer Night's Dream for the first time in front of real fairies and elves. And it's just an incredibly memorable story. And I kind of wanted one of the Locke and Key books to be kind of like that, to sort of aim for that kind of thing. I'm no Neil Gaiman, and I know it, but I still thought I could shoot for a few self-contained stories that people would have fun with.